Thank you. I want to call this Civilian Police Oversight Agency Board meeting to order. Today is July 14th at 5:02, I believe. With that, I want to welcome everyone that has come to our meeting. I'm looking at most people that we can identify. I'm sorry. I'm not sure who Court Reporter Mary is, but I am also jealous of your screensaver. That's very nice. So let's move on with the mission statement that I'll read. Advancing constitutional policing and accountability for APD and the Albuquerque community. And with that, I'm going to, the next one is approval of the agenda. And due to Ms. McDermott, she has decided to return to her regular job only as lead investigator and no longer interim. I'm going to ask that for a motion to amend the agenda to remove items 7H and 13B.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
Member Crawford?
Excuse me,
Oh,
with that.
You didn't take a roll call. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Member Friend?
Sorry. Take the roll.
Do you want to go back to the roll call or do you want to?
Yes, roll call.
Member Crawford?
Member Crawford is excused.
Thank you. Member Friend?
Here.
Member Nixon?
Here.
Member Rayner?
Here.
Member Wartell?
Here.
Thank you. Member French, 4 members are present.
Thank you very much. And with that, there's a motion on the floor for approval of amended agenda. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Varela, will you call the roll? Or I'm sorry, the motion is to approve the amendments on the motion.
Correct.
On the agenda.
And it also looks like Mr. Pacheco has his hand raised, so I'm not sure if you want me to do the roll or.
Do the roll first, please. Go ahead.
I just wanted to alert, there might be an issue with GovTV. Elizabeth Martinez indicated that she couldn't access the meeting through GovTV. And so she did log in, but that may exclude other members that do not, or other viewers that don't have the link. And so we may want to check if there's an issue with that.
And also, I'm not sure of where it is, but I know you can also view it through YouTube, but I'm not sure of the link.
Okay, I just wanted to alert the board.
Okay.
Chair,
So
if I may, can
Yes.
GovTV weigh in? I believe we have someone from GovTV here. If they could give us an update about what is or is not going on, that might be one way to quickly remedy that issue.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Will you take the call the roll on the motion for amendments to the agenda?
Member French?
Yes.
Member Nixon?
Yes.
Member Rayner?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Wartell?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
And thank you. With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Barella, will you call the roll?
Member French?
Yes.
Member Nixon?
Yes.
Member Rayner?
I gotta fix this. I gotta do this.
Member Rayner?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Wartell?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. And with that, can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Barella, will you call the roll?
Member French?
Yes.
Member Nixon?
Yes.
Member Rayner?
Yes.
Member Wartell?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. And with that, I'll ask Ms. Burrell, I guess, were there any public comments?
French, there were no written public comments, and I'm not aware of anyone signing up to speak or who joined to give public comments, but you may want to ask the host.
Okay, well, I'm sure they would have told us, they usually do.
There's
So,
one, excuse me, I'm Chair French, didn't mean to interrupt, but there is one person in the waiting room called Walrus. I do not know who that is. I've asked for them to identify themselves, but so it's up to you if you wish to let them in and see if they had public comment.
what is the usual procedure on, I'm sorry, what is,
Actually, they just
Member
disappeared.
Wartell? Do you have a comment?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were waving your hand. I'm sorry.
No. Well, I was killing a fly.
Okay, Ms. McDermott, what is the usual procedure on that?
Well, generally, we try and have them identify themselves, but actually they have dropped out of the waiting room at this point, so it's moot. So
Okay, well, thank you for that. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to item 6, review and approval of the minutes from June 9th. Is there a motion for approval?
So
I'm
moved.
sorry, Chair French, did you approve, did I already call the, did we already do the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
You
Did you
called.
call the roll? I know we did the motion in the second.
Yes, he did. She
We
did.
did.
Yes, I thought you
We
did.
did. We're moving very fast. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, did we get a motion and a second to approve the June 9th minutes? Did we get
So
a,
moved.
okay,
So
and a
moved.
second?
Second.
Okay, with that, Member Varela, will you call the roll?
Member French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
Yes.
Member Wartell.
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passed 4-0.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to reports from city departments, APD, professional standards.
Yes, ma'am. I am Acting Lieutenant Martinez. And let's see, IAPS, we completed 11 cases for the month of June. We had 23 completed area command cases. There were 34 cases that were opened that IAPS kept for investigation. There were 22 area command cases that were open and sent back for them to investigate. And for the month of June, we had 34 pending cases.
And with that, are there any questions from the board? If not, we'll move on to the next one. And I believe that's IA Force Division.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me share my screen with you. Let's make sure that we got that up there. Are you seeing that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so with the Internal Force Division, we had 38,735 CAD or dispatch calls for the month of June 2022. And that number is pretty high for the month of June. And we'll talk in a moment about what June looked like in 2021. As you can see here, level 1s, level 2s, and level 3s. In the foothills, we had 3 level 1s and 4 level 2s and 2 level 3s, total of 9. You see the Northeast, we had level 1 3s, level 2s 5s, and level 3s 2, total of 10. The Northwest is probably the least amount of calls, level calls. Level 1s 2, level 2s 3, and a total of 5. And the Southeast had the highest number, where you can see there the level 1s, 2s, level 2s 13, and level 3s 2, totaling 17. And there was 8,739 calls for service in the southeast during the month of June. Southwest level 1s, 2s, level 2, 2, level 3s, 2, totaling 6 for the southwest, and then Valley, of course, level 1, 1, level 2, 2s, level 3s, 4s, and a total of 7 with 59 calls. So that's what we show that we just see, you see an average there to the right with an average force per call. The numbers have actually gotten better. Just a reminder, your form also includes the different levels. When I refer to levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, the definitions are there, and I believe the committee is very familiar with these. Again, here's the breakdown of the forces that I just covered with that particular graph. As you can see, Southeast has the highest number. As we look further down, the types of calls as we broke them down, the on-site suspicious persons or vehicles, that most likely be like a person loitering at a closed business, or a no trespassing, or a suspicious person or vehicle again in the area. We had the use of force incidences for that would be number 7 for the month of June. Then family disputes came in tie with that as well, 7. And then as you see, their disturbances are 5. And then aggravated batteries are 5. And then they go down from there. Now, something I wanted to point out, breaking down the data over the year for the month of June. Now, of course, we don't have the actual June, but I wanted to point out that if you look at the center bar, and again, looking at each area command in this graph, and you look at the center bar, the highest bar that would represent the month of June in 2021. And as you can see here, in each area command, substantially higher than any other month. So we'll be able to see that next month with the graphs, but June seems to traditionally be the highest number that we've seen in force cases. And again, looking back at the numbers for June of 2021, for example, the Southeast had 17 in the month of June, where in the month of June in 2021, we had 21. So we've come down in each one of these area commands. And again, this is looking at a 12-month data force. I'm happy to say that we are seeing a decrease. Of course, the call volume is still pretty high, but we're seeing some successes here looking at the graphs from last year in comparison over a 12-month period. And that concludes my presentation.
I have a question for you. Back to that graph where you had 21 and 22. Which area command had the most improvement when it came to the calls?
Which area command had the
Yeah.
most improvement?
Yeah. I was trying to see, but you went through it too fast. 21-17, 21-18. Looks like 18 down to 8.8 with that.
Yeah.
8?
Uh-huh. So it looks like,
Or is it?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it looks like, I can't see because I have, it looks like it may be Foothills.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so Foothills went from 18 down to 3. Am I reading that correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, so, but you're looking, yeah, so, yeah, we're looking at so May of 2022, we only had 3 in the Foothills, which is definitely, yeah, we've seen a decrease there as well. And looking at the total number for the Foothills was 9. Now they were, they're still ranked as one of the lowest actually was the Southwest at 6 total for the month of June. And then from there would have been Valley, and then of course the Foothills, or I'm sorry, the Northwest, then Southwest, Valley, and then the Foothills. But we are seeing the most improvement there in the Foothills. You're correct.
Okay, thank you. I was
Would-
trying to find that information while you were presenting.
Would you please go back to the very first graph?
Sure.
I'm just trying to understand here. You're reporting on force per 1,000 calls, and I can see that there's a significant difference between 0.9 and 1.9. But is there statistical significance in all of those, or are they about the same? And the other issue is, you don't report on the total number of uses of, or calls or uses of force per population. Is Southeast more densely populated or have more people in it than the other?
Than the other area commands?
Yeah.
No, you do have, the Southeast probably has more people in it based because the university falls in the Southeast. And then, and then we, of course, the housing in that area, apartments. But yes, I think the population's a little higher.
I'm just wondering what the best way to look at this is.
Sure.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
I do. Yes, I do.
If you have some ideas on that, I'd love to hear them in the future.
And you know what, I'll discuss that with the commander. As you all know, Commander Norris took over IAFD, excited to have him on board with us. And we will discuss that with our analysts and see how we can maybe come up with a better answer the next time we present this.
Oh, Nick, your answer is great. Please, I'm not criticizing at all.
Mr. Wartell, if you want to send me an email with what exact type of information that you're actually looking for, that way I can send that to my analyst and see if we can extrapolate that data for you.
And that would be great. I'm just looking, if you have a more densely, just for example, if you have a more densely populated area, you might automatically have more calls or more people in the individual area. I'm just trying to figure out whether we're looking at something, we're looking at the right comparisons.
Sure. I put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll try to give you a better explanation.
And also, Commander Norris, every area command has their own crime analyst, right? Statistical analyst that gathers
yes.
this type of information.
Not every. We have a crime analyst that, like, for instance, when I just got moved over from the Valley Area Command, so I did have a crime analyst, but that crime analyst was also responsible for the Northeast Area Command as well. So usually our crime analysts are responsible for 2 area commands.
Okay, and maybe at one of the future meetings, we'll ask for exactly what type of information these crime analysts what kind of statistics they gather, because that could be very interesting to the board.
You know, if you want, like I said, I put my email in the chat, and I can push out this invite to maybe our commander of the Real-Time Crime Center. He's actually over the crime analysts, or he could send kind of our professional staff manager, supervisor over our crime analysts, and they could probably, just better comprehensively answer that question, or maybe at least they can kind of understand what you're looking for, and then they can crunch those numbers and get those to us.
Okay, or what I was thinking, there might be information that they already gathered that would be of value to us, and we just don't know that it's there.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Deputy Chief Mays. And so we'll move on to the APD quarterly crash report.
Chair French, if I may.
Yes.
Did you get the email that I forwarded you from Martinez? He said he was going to be a little late, and I don't see that. Has he joined, Diane?
Everybody that is here is in. Let me just check the list real quick. No, I do not see him on the list.
Sure, I can kind of speak to not those numbers, but as to maybe why he may not be on the call. We kind of have an evolving incident relative to protests going on over at Wyoming and Central, and we use our traffic division to help us with traffic control and crowd control. So that may be a reason why he's not here right now.
You know what? That's fine. Let's table this and we'll hear it at our next month's meeting. All right. I don't think I need a motion to table, but let's just table it and let's go on to the next one. City Council, Mr. Sylvan.
Good evening, Chair French, Board, and others. Chris Sylvan, Albuquerque City Council, giving a quick update, very brief update on what's happened since the last time we met. Council met on June 22nd of, well, last month, and two items that are interest to the board would be EC 22-92, and that's the appointment of Lauren Keefe to the city attorney's office. She was approved by the council on a vote of 7-2. I'm sure Carlos will probably mention that in his update, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with that. And the other item of note was OC 22-11, and that was the selection of Ms. Deirdre Ewing to be the executive director of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. That also went for a 7-2 vote, and that is all I have for my report for City Council. Stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, we'll move on. Chris, you're up again, Public Safety Committee.
All right, Public Safety met on June 14th, and the one item that would be of interest to the board was OC 22-6, and that was Civilian Police Oversight Agency Board Annual Performance of the Executive Director. That was passed on by a receipt being noted due to the fact that the agency has not had an executive director throughout the fall into the end of the year. So there was really no report to be filed, and procedurally the council understands that as well. With that, I stand for questions on that part of my agenda.
Okay, are there any questions? I don't see any, so we'll move on. The next one is the mayor's office, but Pastor Walker is out of town, so we will not be hearing that report. We will go on to City Attorney.
And good evening, Honorable Chair. I'll speak on behalf of Ms. Keefe, who couldn't make it tonight. But as Mr. Sylvan did indicate, she was approved by council, and so her appointment did go through. I think the top thing on everybody's agenda, I would think, on everybody's calendar would be the July 26th IMR 15 hearing before Judge Browning. That will be virtual, and the link should be forthcoming, as well as the agenda. I don't think that's been completed, but that's a work in progress. We did complete one final Mickey meeting on the 12th. And let me see, the other thing to report is Member Nixon met with Deputy Chief Lowe. I think it was a very productive meeting, and I suspect that Member Nixon will be reporting to the board on that later on today. I did receive the training proposal from Ms. Gooch. That is under review, so I appreciate that. And so hopefully, comments will be forthcoming. Let me see. The past month was pretty busy contract wise. We did finally get the Tina Gooch, the Sutton contract taken care of and straightened out and finalized, as well as the closed captioning contract for Cpoa the CPOA hearings. And so those were taken care of. And we did engage in some discussions on the MOU with APOA, and that'll be an item for discussion later on in the agenda as well. And so I think those are the big items that I have for right now, but I will stand for questions.
I don't see any questions. I will say that it looks like Acting Lieutenant Martinez has joined us. Lieutenant Martinez, I had tabled your agenda item, your crash report, due to you not being here, but we can circle back and you certainly can present since you're here.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me get my screen up so I can share my screen with y'all. See if I can figure this out. Sorry for this. Does this work for you guys? Can everybody see what I have up?
We can see.
Okay. So yeah, sorry for the delay. I was in training today. Sorry about that. But I will go ahead and get started with the Department Crash Review Board update for this fourth quarter. We have two categories that are being tracked currently from the department. The third-party claim payouts related to bodily injury or property damage. The first property crime payouts are related to the damage of city property, usually a single vehicle crash into like a fixed object, curb, and city vehicle. The crash review board is comprised of the traffic division commander, now myself, acting lieutenant, a motor sergeant, and a motor officer. All the crash reconstruction certified in this area. The operations review, fleet detective, and APD safety officer are also on the board who attend these meetings. The board reviews these crashes. Along with the crashes, there's photographs of the crashes, so we can help figure out what exactly happened and see the damage involved in these cases. Crash review board decision categories. There are three categories that we look at for the crashes that are involved. We have a non-preventable, meaning that the officer couldn't do anything to prevent the accident. Preventable, meaning that there's some contributing factors there that if they were met, they would have been that the accident would have been non-preventable. Non-crash, these are incidents that it would have been like a directed action of the officer to make contact with the other vehicle. The crash review board will also identify employees who have had 2 or more preventable crashes within a 12-month period. If we do find this, we don't hand out the discipline or deal with discipline. We just review the cases. This goes back to their chain of command, and then their chain of command will determine what discipline, if any, needs to be disseminated. For this quarter, the non-preventable crashes from April 1st to June 30th, we had 20. So we're down a little bit from the previous first 2 quarters, and we're maintained with quarter 3 at 20. For our preventable crashes, from April 1st to June 30th, we have 19. So obviously that's up a little bit. So we don't know what's contributing to that, obviously, but they are up. So we're kind of starting to pay attention to see if there are contributing factors of what may be going on. For non-crashes from April 1st to June 30th, we only had 3 instances to where this happened, which is also up. So maybe due to different things, number of calls that are involving some type of action to where officers may need to prevent the vehicle from moving of some sort. The previous preventable crashes within a 12-month period. was 5. From April 1st to June 30th was 5. So that's up as well. The third party claim payouts from the fourth quarter is going to be 21,683 on 11 claims. So that's down. First party claim payout for the fourth quarter is going to be 239,694 for a total of 43 claims, which is pretty even with the third quarter. We're up by 1. The top 3 preventable crashes contributing factors are still the same. The first one's collisions while backing, collisions with a fixed object, and obviously a front end collision. We have there's the alcohol drug impairment has not been identified as any contributing factors for any of the officer involved crashes that we've investigated or that have happened on the department thus far. That's going to conclude my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one question for you. Have you, in your looking at these reports, have you seen any particular intersection or any particular street, boulevard, avenue, whatever, that you see more of these accidents on?
No, there hasn't been anything that stood out to us that would make us want to look into it further with maybe like traffic engineering or anything like that. No, we haven't noticed anything of that nature.
That was my only question.
Okay.
A question about drag racing. In your statistics and metrics that you guys are covering, collisions due to chases or no chases, as far as drag racing is concerned, related to those, do those show up in these statistics as well?
If it involved a city vehicle, like a police vehicle, is that what you're asking? If they're involved in any of these?
Yeah.
It would show up in these. I guess it would be if it was an actual crash that had happened, but if there was some type of pursuit that happened and they did like a pit maneuver or something,
right,
that would be in one of the in that category that we went through of the non-crash. That would be a non-crash.
Okay, that's a non-crash. Okay, so pit maneuvers, when they are used on purpose, they do fall into that category.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a directed action. Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any more questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. I don't believe there were any requests for reconsideration. I don't see any of those. Sorry, thank you, Lieutenant Martinez, for that.
Yep. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. On review of cases, I believe most of the board, oh, I'm sorry. I jumped down. Kelly, I'm so sorry. We jumped back up and I left you out. Sorry. Can we have the report from CPC? Sorry, Mr. Mintz.
Good evening, Honorable Chair. Good evening, Board. Hope everyone is doing well today. We've had a pretty busy month over the last month with CPC projects, and hopefully we've made a little bit of progress. We have supported a few public events trying to meet quotas and recruit people, and including the mayor's State of the City address, which was a positive event for us. We definitely got a few new applicants from that one, and it was a good show all in all by the mayor, I'd say. We received 8 new applicants. What I did is I looked at the files from 2019 and 2020 as to people who had applied before I came. So a couple of these people were still interested. A lot of them didn't get back to me, but 8 people got back. And we have scheduled everyone for interviews. We got 1 new person so far from this method. So hopefully that's going to work out, because we're down about 20 seats right now on the 6th council. So we're hoping to get that work. I got another in from
a gentleman named Amir Chappell, who used to work for the police department. He did statistics for them. And I asked him, as he's been involved on both sides of the law, I said, do you know any non-traditional candidates who might want to be interested in police service? And he was unaware that they had waived the ride along and the Cpoa for what you could call it, necessities to be on the program. And I told him, no, that's no longer the case. So he said, yeah, I've got a few people who would be interested in joining the Community Policing Council, and I'll send you these names by the end of the week. So I'm looking forward to that. So far, we have gone back to an in-person schedule for meetings for 4 of the 6 councils so far. We have a nice Zoom conference camera, and we're still working out the bugs, but it's been highly received so far. We've had anywhere from 4 to 11 members show up in person, which is not bad considering a lot of people don't know that we've gone back to our in-person meeting schedule. We have the Northeast, which would be the 5th council going back in August, and the Southwest would be the last one. They only have 3 members right now, so we want to add a couple more council members, and then we'll be able to possibly go back live in person with them also. We've left it up to the councils as to how many times a year they want to do it, if they want to do it every month, every other month, etc. So far, we're just figuring that process out. We had a council of chairs last month discussing the budget, and we kind of tabled that event until our next council of chairs meeting, which is going to be on Saturday. And my proposal is that we split the budget probably in half to maybe 2/3 for general allocation for all 6 councils. And we do have some of the budget individually. We're not sure exactly how much, maybe $1,000, maybe 1/3, so to somewhere in a half. We're discussing those details in which they can buy individually branded material, have individual events, etc. So we're trying to figure that out at the next thing. We had our meeting with the chief and the downtown staff, the district command staff. And that went pretty well. A lot of the topics we broached were the council wanted a seat on the Metro Crime Initiative Board. And the chief said, okay, we're going to invite all 6 council chairs, or at least one chair from one representative from each council, which is more than we expected. We've been asking for this sort of transparency for a while, and they came through with this, which was a good thing. But unfortunately, they canceled the MCI board for now. It's been rescheduled until later in the summer, I understand, because there are so many discussions going on different things. We also got a lot of answers on local police policy and the area commands, and they got to ask the chief a few offbeat questions as far as what you're doing on street racing, the newest on homelessness, what exactly is the McClendon settlement, who can be arrested and who cannot be arrested, and that sort of thing. And with new chairs and new council members, I think this was valuable information. And next week, I have 2 appearances. I'm going on Ann Edenfield's show, her podcast on Wings for Life, which is seen all over the state, in Las Cruces, Roswell, and all over. And also, I'm doing Maria Wolf's Echo program, which is going to be focusing on the Community Policing Council. So we've had a busy month, and hopefully we are moving in the right direction. Any questions?
Are there any questions? I don't know. Thank you, Kelly. That was a great report. And I will say, when we met with the DOJ, when I met with the DOJ, there was a person from Washington that's what he does. He's over that, and he spoke very highly of the CPC.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That's nice to hear.
Okay, we'll move on to our next one, and that's APOA. And I don't see that Sean is here or anyone from APOA. So we will move on to item number 8, and that was request for reconsideration. And I don't believe we have any of those. Review of cases. I am sure that the board has read and reviewed 2422 and 2722. And I would entertain a motion that we accept the agency's disciplinary recommendation on these two cases.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
Member French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
You're muted.
Yes, sorry.
thank you. Member Wortel,
yes.
thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And the next agenda item is non-concurrence, and I don't see any of those on the agenda. The next one, did I say item 10? I'm sorry. With non-concurrence, and we'll go on to 11. Cases pulled from the consent agenda. I did have those pulled because I wasn't sure. I didn't have enough information to decide if there was anything that could lead to maybe the board making recommendations for policy changes or procedures. I did get the information I requested and I didn't see anything to note there. So we'll move on to item number 12. And that's report from the subcommittee. Member Crawford is out of the state and is excused, but I did sit in on that meeting, and at that meeting, we reviewed 10 SOPs. We did have a question. I believe they are in the attachments. We reviewed 1-48, which is the fiscal division. We reviewed 1-78, which is police service aid. We reviewed 2-62. That's pending request because of removal of explicit language that pre-stop license plate checks cannot be considered a criminal predicate. And that was removed out of there, and we're asking for explanation as why. 3- thank you, Diane. 3-21, scheduled and unscheduled leave. Purchasing guide. 3-76. 2-46, response to traffic crashes. 2-51, safe drive award programs. It was suggested that we monitor the success of this program over time, because they're now implementing an award program for safe driving for officers. 2-80, arrest warrants and booking procedures. 2-17, offense incident report form. I believe they do have a new records system, so the form has changed. And 2-40, misdemeanor traffic and parking enforcements. And those are the 10 SOPs that we reviewed at our meeting on July the 7th. And that's all I have on item 12. Item 13, I'm going to make a motion that the board forward these 9 policies with the exception of 2-62 that I just read off for no recommendations. And I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have that motion and the second. Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
Excuse
Member
me.
French, oh, sorry. Go.
Yes, Member Wortel.
Can you just reread the motion for me, please?
The motion is that we would forward to APD, and I believe Ollie is the one that does that. We forward them that we make no recommendation on those SOP changes, revisions.
Thank you.
So Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
Member French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
Yes.
Member Wortel.
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is reformatting how data is provided to the board. And that is Member Nixon.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
And I'll be brief, but I'll be thorough, so I'll field any questions that you guys may have. So meeting with Deputy Commander, Area Command, no, Deputy Commander or Miss Lowe, she was very instrumental in getting me the information I needed. What I anticipated when I actually questioned her and just kind of getting an understanding of how data is kept at APD was I anticipated that the data was kept very secure and that it was quite available. In other words, the technology that's being used, whether we're talking about the servers or the middleware, is not only up to date, but it's some of the cutting edge type of data that's even being used across the board in a lot of hosting facilities that you would find in the United States. Another piece of that, and what I was looking at were two aspects. The first aspect is availability, and the second aspect was format. With the consideration of things like a collective bargaining agreement, the clearance and authorization of users to be able to access the data, I found that there were no roadblocks to doing that and to getting that information. This is including redacted information. I think that the redaction process, from what I was able to ascertain from questioning Ms. Lowe, is appropriate. Not necessarily in her wheelhouse, but when we're talking about use of, for example, use of force cases and that data is redacted, it doesn't preclude us from getting information if we need to dig deeper, if that happens. And that is because of the technology that's used to store the data, as well as the middleware that we use, evidence.com, the links that they use, the directories that they put the data in for us, do not preclude us from getting any information that is provided or that APD has at their disposal. Now, when it comes to policies on the data, the policies I felt were kind of appropriate. Like I said, when it comes to redaction and basically protecting the officers as well as the civilians' rights and their privacy. When it comes to this, number one, as board members, we are cleared. So one question was, okay, does our clearance give us the authority to see data as we need it? When I say as we need it, what I came away with, and this is one of the things you can understand as board members, we're looking to see what happened. We're looking to look at cases, whether they're complaints or whether they're use of force cases, to ascertain and get an established understanding of what events happened, what occurred. With that said, all the data that I looked at, or all the information I've looked at so far, says that if we can reconfigure this where we have one central location where data is put constantly, whether that data is removed or replaced for whatever monthly meeting, et cetera, that can be done. And that was kind of confirmed on my questioning with Ms. Lowe, was that that's available. So in streamlining this process, instead of having to click on link, click here, click there, and do those kind of things, it is feasible that the board can have one central location where they can find the data, and that data can be put for any and all future monthly meetings and any should I say, reviews that we have to do as far as case reviews are concerned. With that said, let's see, there was one more thing. Oh, when it comes to redacted data, with the timeline that it takes to redact data, what I found was, what I came away with was that we're not looking at doing anything outside of the timeline that it takes to for example, the Force Review Board, Internal Affairs would have in order to have that data redacted. So when you look at the timeline as to what the board is looking for on a monthly basis to look at reviewed cases, to streamline it does not necessarily disrupt the process. Number one, we want that data to be in one place. Number two, we want to make sure we have access to it. And number three, we want to make sure that any data that we want to see that's going to be supplemental, and there's just not much there other than what's being provided for us, is available for access in that one central point. And I'll take any questions at this point.
So Eric, oh, go ahead, Member Wortel.
So the ideal situation would be to have a site where the case number was referenced, and clicking on that case number would give us all available, all needed data.
That is correct. That is correct. Very, very similar to, like, for example, this last link that was sent. I don't necessarily think it has to be a link, nor do I think that the other than what cases, Michael, are necessary or provided for us for a particular meeting. Yes, I think that that central location can be created so that it's just there every time.
I think that would be ideal.
Yeah.
So Eric, with your meeting with Commander or Deputy Chief Lowe, how soon can we expect this? Because currently, as you know, we have to go here, go there, click on the year, then click on the month, and then you have to look several different, I mean, it's very, very time consuming and makes our job very hard, very hard. So,
well, you know, that's a good question, because one of the things I could not understand is why the director would have to go in and do those things, although that might be policy or process at this time. What I'm proposing is that we change that policy so the director doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, in on that process. If we can get that data and get that information to that one central point, then the efficiencies on that look to be there. So I don't necessarily know why that has to be the case. And if, in my opinion, I think that having a third party do that for us there's no value added. If you can say, okay, this is where the data is, this is the data administrator says they can put it here, boom, it's done. And that's, go ahead, Mike.
I assume Deputy Chief Lowe was amenable to that.
Yes, because, you know, one of the things she said was there's not necessarily a reason not to be able to do that. So yes, very much amenable. Now the only question is, okay, how does she get the information to say, okay, which cases would you like to see for this month? I think that that's where the agency comes in and says, okay, well, for this month in this meeting, we're setting this agenda. We'd like to have these cases put in the board's folder so that they can take a look at it. As simple as that.
I think that's, me too. I think that's a really quick fix that we can do if that's all it takes, Eric. So indeed. Eric, I'm going to ask you to continue looking into this, because as you know, we have a special meeting coming up, and I would like, you know, we may have the data, but if this is the way that we can get it and it'd be much easier, we may can do more than just those cases at that special meeting. So would you continue working with APD and see if we can, you can get that done, or what needs to be done?
Absolutely, and I'll lend my time as well to testing once that site is established so that it's consistent. For example, a day in the life for us would be where we could set the link on our bookmarks, and we know that we can go back to that very link every single time whenever it's time for us to review, or anytime we want to click the link, boom, we're right there, we can see our data. Again, this is secure. Okay, so we're not making any violations in security or any of the protocols that we already have in place, which is the beauty of it. You know, keeping it simple, basically.
That would be great. As Member Wartell tells me over and over, I need 3 screens to do this. So that would be absolutely wonderful. So yes, let's continue. This is of the utmost importance to myself and other board members. We have 2 new board members, and we certainly don't want them to have to currently find the information the way it's currently given to us. So that will be great. Thank you, Eric. And let's continue talking.
I'll keep you posted. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So the next one is item D, and it's the policy and procedure revisions. As you know, I assigned an ad hoc committee. Member Wartell and I worked on them, and we worked with our legal counsel, Counselor Gooch, on this. I did send them out to the board. I asked for any questions. I did receive several questions and addressed those. And I don't think there's any more questions right now, but I do believe that we have it. And so I would entertain a motion that we pass these. And let me just say this, go back. There is, this is required by us in the ordinance to do this annually. So this is something we're going to be doing annually. I don't think it was required before. So we will be doing this. So I would entertain a motion that we approve the policy and procedures with any grammatical or punctuation corrections. And then we will forward the finalized copy to the agency.
So moved.
Would you accept a friendly amendment authorizing legal counsel to take care of any typographical errors without having to come back to the board to fix minor issues?
Absolutely. I was counting on Councilor Gooch to do that anyway. So absolutely. So I will amend my motion to include that our legal counsel can make those corrections. And then she and I will talk about any corrections made, and then we'll send the final revised policy and procedures to the agency. So
we might ask member Council Gooch if that's acceptable to her.
Chair French, member Wartell, yes.
Thank you. And with that, Ms. Barella, will you call the roll?
Yes. Member French,
Yes.
member Nixon,
Yes.
member Rayner,
Yes.
member Wartell.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
One comment, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think that what we've done will considerably ease the execution of these meetings.
I do
And
too.
I hope that we've done the right thing.
Well, we have to review them annually, so we will be able to make any revisions necessary. Trial and error. So absolutely. And we'll move on to consideration of proposed MOU between the city of Albuquerque and Apoa. Tina?
Thank you, Chair French and board. You have in your board materials the latest offer from the Apoa to the parties regarding the MOU discussions. It essentially is saying that if the board would agree that any viewing of OBRD footage would occur on APD premises, that the union might be okay with the MOU that is being discussed. I have communicated with both the city and the union's counsel about the request. Let them know that you all would be considering that tonight, invited them to attend, to discuss with you all why this is a new occurrence that they're offering, the reasoning behind it. But I don't see anyone has joined from the union. And of course, Mr. Pacheco is here for the city, but this is 100% coming from the union. This did not come from the city. At this point, my advice is that there is no need for the board to have to go to APD to access the OBRD footage. That under the ordinance in CASA, you get the information. The MOU was simply an opportunity to help accommodate APD and its request to help allocate its resources to not redacting the video. I had very much hope in connection with the city that we could get there, but with this latest offer, I'm not sure we can. Of course, I told the union and the city that I would make sure that it was before the board because this is ultimately your decision. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And I don't know if Mr. Pacheco would like to weigh in, but that is our current, most recent status as we sit here tonight.
And honorable board, the only thing I would have to add is I essentially concur with Ms. Gooch's assessment. I don't know where this counteroffer is coming from. I don't know if I'm doubtful that it's workable for you all. And so, absent the MOU, I think we'll have to just find some workarounds through APD to make the videos more accessible. So.
It's hard to justify taking all of that extra time and travel time to do that without any reasoning from Mr. Maurer and the folks with APOA. I don't get it.
Chair Member Wartell, I know it's very disappointing. I know that we have been in these talks. I know the board, Member Crawford right now, prior board members have spent a lot of time in these discussions. We had tried early on years ago to get a baseline general understanding that everyone would agree. So it is disappointing that we are at this place. If the board would like to provide instruction as to whether you want us to continue to try or abandon or see where things go, that would be useful. I would also ask for guidance as to this last offer, whether the board votes yes or no, just so that I do have something to represent back to the union on behalf of the board.
Does it make any sense for us to meet with Mr. Maurer? I mean, this is coming basically from him, is it not? He's making the offering.
Chair French and Member Wartell, you essentially, the board, are meeting with Mr. Maurer and the union through Member Crawford as your liaison for these discussions. And your chair has also come to a few of these meetings.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that's why I'm here to answer questions, but yes. So the answer is no, because I think you already are doing that and you're already expending efforts in that regard.
That makes sense.
And just to understand, Council Gooch, what is the concern of the union again? Just the basic.
Chair French, Member Nixon, I'm not laughing at you or your question. I'm laughing because I don't know the answer, and I've been trying since March of last year to try to get to the answer to your question. So I don't mean to make light of it. I feel like we're banging our head against a wall at this point and are doing it now knowingly and willingly. Conceptually, the idea, I think, is that the board may get access to officer information and OBRD footage before the IA investigations or the district attorney investigations have completed. That's my understanding, but where that breaks down is with the Inspection of Public Records Act law and the realities of what actually happens when a member of the public seeks OBRD footage and the fact that the city releases it. So if you were not on the board and you wanted a video, you could send an IPRA request and you would get it in many, I mean, there's obviously exceptions and exemptions and a timeline for it, but eventually you would get it well before it would come before the board or be done with FRB and up for consideration. So I don't understand why there's a problem, given that with IPRA, a regular member of the public would already have access to said information. But as best I can tell, that is the concern. At this point, you are getting the information. You're just getting it a little delayed because APD has to spend staff time and energy to redact faces and blur them. And this was really an attempt, a good faith attempt that Mr. Pacheco, the city, the board, and we thought the union were making to try to help APD reallocate those resources for other uses.
Okay. So here's the irony that I find in this, because I'm sure you'll appreciate this. We are cleared. In other words, somebody had to go and look at my background and see if whether or not I was appropriate to serve on this agency. I am a taxpaying citizen of the United States. If I understand you correctly, at any given time, I can make an IPRA request and get the information that we're talking about. When it comes to, I've always had this, I'd say since year 1.5, I've had this impression that the Cpoa board sits in a position where APD is the fox guarding the hen house. In other words, we have so many policies and procedures that hamstring us from doing what it is we're supposed to be doing as oversight, that we can no longer reach conclusions that are definitive nor are common sense because we have these kind of administrivia. Now, when I understand this MOU, there's two things that come to mind as a citizen of this country. number one, I have a right to IPRA information, so that should not change at any given time, regardless of what capacity I'm serving as an agent / board member on the CPOA. In other words, it does not change my citizenship where I am now removed in any way, shape, or form from getting said data. In fact, the fact that I sit on this board means basically that I have a right, and probably an expedited right, by using some of the mechanisms that are in place in order to see that said data. So I would like to continue to pursue it. And the reason I say that is because while I'm not trying to race or beat internal affairs or the Forest Review Board on anything, and don't really particularly care to do that, for transparency's sake, for the taxpayer or the community member that we are supposed to represent, what I would like to do, though, is ensure that my rights are used in tandem with serving on this board, and that clearance has given us something. So, and the board members, you guys might not agree with me, but I think that we should fight this because it doesn't make sense. Again, we're coming away from this where we're being hamstrung in some capacity to try to protect somebody that's already protected because we are serving in a capacity that is in line with the CASA. Unless I'm missing something, in other words, I can't go to the media and say, hey, I got some data for you guys, go ahead, here, you can have it. And that is just not something, even with a non-disclosure agreement, that's there. Now, if that's not there, if that understanding is not there, getting to that capacity so that they can understand that we are seeking this data only in the capacity as a board member versus just a citizen, I would think that, I would hope that we can make some leeway on that, unless the union has so much power over this board that they can dictate something so silly, so unfair. Your thoughts on that? And I'm sorry I got long-winded on that, but I will break it down a little bit if I need to. Sorry.
Chair French, Member Nixon, you're right. I mean, you don't have less rights as a board member, but you do have a rule of ethics and a code of conduct that you're well aware of that prohibits you from doing exactly what you just said, which is going to the media, feeding information, identifying officers by name. But you all are bound by that code of conduct and ethical duty separate from this MOU. And you all are aware of it, and you all understand what those duties are. The MOU simply was going to help APD get you OBRD footage for your officer-involved shooting and serious use of force cases without the need for personnel to redact faces in the footage. That is all this MOU was seeking to do. And I am happy to continue to try to negotiate that particular accommodation for APD if Mr. Pacheco thinks it's worthwhile. But I would like instruction from the board that this offer of requiring the board to go to APD to view said video is either accepted or rejected.
Ms. Gooch, my experience is that unions use things as bargaining chips. And in this case, this is a bargaining chip where they're bargaining for something that doesn't make any sense. Sending us down to police head APD to look at the OBRD doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm with Eric. I think we ought to continue to negotiate, but I don't know what we're negotiating, what the negotiation is for on the other side, because they might as well ask us to stand on our heads.
And watch the footage.
I mean, is that fair? It's just the way it feels.
Well, this is my thoughts. I don't care if the information is redacted and we don't see the officer's face or nameplate. I really don't. I do agree that we should continue with this. And I think if there's an issue, Tina, you said you've been trying to negotiate this MOU since last March. That is utterly ridiculous that the taxpayers and us are paying you to negotiate this with APOA for this long. I don't know what the DOJ can do to help us, but if necessary, we need to have them step in also. Like I said, I don't mind if it's redacted, but neither are we going to step down and say, we're going to relinquish our duties based on them wanting us to come downtown. Now, I will tell you as a volunteer, I volunteer hours of my time to sit on this board. To say that now I have to drive downtown and I live in the Heights with the cost of gas to review every one of these, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it.
This seems like it's.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but I was just saying, I'm not going to do it, and that's not a requirement. That I don't know why Mr. Maurer would request something like that. To me, it seems ridiculous that he would even ask for something like that. He knows better. So I'm with Eric and with Member Wartell. Absolutely not. And am I going to drive downtown to look at that? And let me tell you another reason why I'm not. It's because a lot of times I'll look at it 2 or 3 times. I will go to a certain section and review just that part. Maybe it's 60 seconds over and over and over because you miss things. And so I can't do that if I have to go downtown. Therefore, I can't do a thorough job that I'm required to do. So I'm in agreement with them. If you wanted to know a consensus from the board, and I think Member Rayner is the other person that is voting tonight, has approval to vote, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Mr. Pacheco. I'm sorry, I want to make sure that Mr. Rashad has an opportunity to speak as well.
Yeah, I agree with everyone saying. My one question is, what is the being new? What's the status of not having this signed? Is it's just this longer time frame, and this is just I wonder how much more time should be spent even trying to get this signed. If we can get is the idea that this will help expedite us getting this data? Is that's the goal of this?
Yeah, the goal is to get it done faster, as opposed to, like Member French was saying, where we have to go downtown and look at OBDR footage, which is totally ridiculous.
And for APD not to expend the professional person hours, excuse me, redacting the information, right?
And that's my question. How long does that normally take for them to redact and do all that? What's the delay between when these other entities get this data versus when the board gets the data?
It can be months. And we have a case study or time study coming down the pike on this, but we've had months and months of looking at this. I know correct me if I'm wrong, Member French or Mike, but it can take months. And
so isn't there a duty to spend the money in an appropriate way? And this seems to be there seems to be no basis for this redaction. So if that's the case, is this some type of waste, fraud, or abuse by having someone do this when it's completely unnecessary, causing, like was said before, tax dollars to be, I don't know if I'm overstepping by using the word wasted, but it seems as if it is not necessary to redact, then why is that happening? And is that something that we can push on and lean on and saying that there's an unnecessary process being applied that is not necessary?
That is an excellent point. I'll refer that to Member Pacheco because he has his hand up. So, or Council Pacheco.
You're muted.
Thank you. I missed the question. I'm sorry, Member Rayner, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question was, if there is no legal basis or there's no ordinance or what have you that said, or in the CASA agreement that says that the video that we see has to be redacted, is this a waste of money? Isn't there a duty to not be wasteful, right? In my line of work, waste, fraud, and abuse. And if we're adding an additional step that is not required, does that fall under this category? Does that make sense?
Well, actually, so the issue of redaction, I think, stems from provisions within the collective bargaining agreement and protection of the officers' identities, if I'm not mistaken. And so it does get, it's technically required right now, and that's why APOA has such a stake in it right now. But the point that I was going to get to is my recommendation for you all would be, do not bargain that away where you have to go to the station to review video. I don't think that that's a deal at all. That's not a deal. But what I would suggest is we do continue to try to reason and negotiate with APOA on the MOU and try and find some other reasonable workarounds. But in the meantime, we can take a two-pronged approach and work with APD to hopefully get better resources so that we can provide those materials to CPOAB in a more timely manner. Because at the end of the day, the burden falls on APD to get those materials to you faster and timelier. And that was our interest in getting the MOU, is it skips a step for us and for our benefit. And so, I think that it's a two-prong approach that I would recommend. I'm going to look at Elizabeth's comments here just to make sure I'm not missing something.
Elizabeth Martinez has made a comment that says that we will be provided the identities of officers involved in the incidents under review. Am I reading that wrong?
Nope, that's what she says on B. Mike, I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing. You're seeing B, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm looking at.
Chair French and Member Wartell, rest of the board, the language that Ms. Martinez is providing in the chat is directly from the CASA provisions, the CASA paragraphs. But as Mr. Pacheco pointed out, we do have the collective bargaining agreement overlay here that makes things a little less clear. Yes. But that being said, if it's the board's wish, I can report back to the APOA lawyer that no, thank you with regard to the latest offer, but we are still interested in continuing discussions. And I can work with your liaison on this issue, Member Crawford, and your chair to see if we can move things forward in a productive manner.
This is what I disagree with what you said, Tina. As an entity on the board, I can understand redaction, and Carlos, if you could chime in on this, that'd be great. When you talk about redaction, my understanding is that with that bargaining agreement, that is to protect the identity of the officer from the public when necessary, so that unnecessary actions can be taken against that officer, so on and so forth. Then looking at the CASA and the ethics requirement that you had mentioned earlier, we do not fall under that purview. Therefore, this is very, very clear that we do not fall under the purview that is necessary for redaction. Unless I'm missing something, we've got the CASA and how it is stated. We have the ethics requirement that we have on this, and we have position as a board member of Civilian Police Oversight Agency. So there's not really room to say, okay, this board is going to have to jump through some sort of hoop because of a collective bargaining agreement. Furthermore, unless I'm missing something, because I'm not a city employee, nor do I work for APD, I don't fall under, as a board member, any of the provisions of redaction due to being that board member. If I'm understanding this correctly, help me out with that, Carlos.
Yeah, the problem with that, Mr. Nixon, is that APD is bound by those things, and so and getting APD on board with that position is going to be tough. And so my suggestion remains: let's try and work with APD to try to improve the processes so that maybe we can get the materials to you in a faster and more efficient way. I think you were onto something in your earlier presentation, and I think it ties in. And so I think we can go on a two-prong approach here. And you know, and if the MOU doesn't go through, then you know, it needs to come from APD that, hey, this is a problem as far as providing the materials, and you know, ultimately we're gonna have to throw more staff at it, or more resources, or more technology, or whatever it is that has to happen to make it a tenable thing. But you know, I think that's the approach that I would recommend to you all.
I have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Well, just one quick question, Mike. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but and maybe Ms. Martinez can weigh in on this too. Is the CPOA board independent of APD, or do we work under APD?
Independent.
I can answer that. You are independent of APD, but the APD controls those materials, and so that's where the issue lies.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Okay, that clears it up. I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, oh no, Rashad had something to say. And
yeah, I saw you turn green.
Yeah, my question is, so we saw the language in the CASA. It'd be nice to see the language in the collective bargaining agreement to see how that's written. And in addition, who is the person or persons that is in charge of mediating this? You know, what is that person's title to help deconflict these two things? Because it sounds like where we're at is, you know, forget the logic portion that's not making any sense, which is you can view this unredacted if you go here, but if you don't, this is no longer about whether or not it's redacted or not, based off of their logic of, if you go to APD, you can see it. So at some point, there's an acknowledgement that we do have a right to see this unredacted, but I'm struggling to follow the logic and how the collective bargaining agreement allows for us to see unredacted things in a certain location versus not in another. And so if we saw the language and who it applied to, I'd like to see what that means, because it's just, I don't know what happens when we have two conflicting agreements and who deconflicts that.
Before you answer that, may I piggyback on what Rashad is saying? If the collective bargaining agreement that's signed by both parties agree to do something that's illegal, who steps in and stops it? And the direction I'm going is, do we have a higher authority that can say, can we take them to court? I think that's the question I'm asking.
So Chair French, Member Rayner, and Wartell, I don't have a copy of the most recent collective bargaining agreement handy. I believe Mr. Pacheco may. I'll work with him to get that contract distributed to the board so y'all have it and have the actual content. But in answer to your question, who mediates or who deals with this issue, I believe it would be the monitor in the first call. That is who reviews for compliance for the CASA. And in the event there was an issue that rose to the level necessary that couldn't be dealt with among the parties, then it would be the judge in the CASA matter. But I'm hopeful that we could at least get this through to the monitor level, get a reasonable meeting of the minds, and not have to push or ask for assistance from one of the parties to raise this with the court.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's to Ms. Martinez's recommendation to let the monitor weigh in to review it, if I'm understanding her last post.
Chair French and Member Nixon, yeah, I think that is where we are. So if I'm understanding, and maybe that you guys want to take a vote to a motion, if you will, to reject the latest offer from the APOA regarding visiting APD to view videos, but instructions to your liaison and counsel to continue negotiations and looping in the monitor if that becomes necessary, which
Can I make
between all of us.
Can I
I
make
think
that
we're
move?
there.
Can I make that move off of your language there? Is that legal?
Yes,
So
we'll just
moved.
have her, yeah, and I'll second that. And I have one more question since we have a motion and a second on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm the average citizen and I request that information after 90 days or whatever the time is it redacted? Or is the officer's face and everything there?
No, it's not.
Ruh-roh. Good
I guess that
question.
would be to Mr. Pacheco. If I request it, if I do an IPA request the same information, is it redacted? Are the faces and the officer's information redacted?
I believe no, certain parts may be redacted because of other legal issues.
Like if it's a minor in the video or something?
If there was a minor involved, if the certain things will remain redacted, personally identifiable information,
Yeah.
minors, I think Garrity statements remain redacted. I'm trying to think some other.
I'm just talking about the lapel, the OBD.
No, but you know, those things can end up on the OBRD though, is what I'm getting at. And so
Okay.
I think that are certain classes of information that could be redacted, but I think as a general answer, no.
So my second question is, most of these serious use of force and OIS cases are requested by the media or whatever through an IPA request. So that information that shouldn't get out publicly has already been redacted 9 times out of 10. So I'm not sure what the issue is with the APOA if it can be blasted on the media, YouTube and everything else, but they don't want us to have it, which we have a code of conduct and ethics. I don't understand it. I don't get the fight here, but Carlos, I would like you to weigh in because I did ask for the DOJ to step in, and Ms. Martinez put several comments on the chat, and every time I look at my chat, my video goes off. So I would like you to weigh in because she's saying that the city will provide certain information per the CASA. So are we saying the city is not able to enforce the CASA?
I mean, we're striking a careful balance between enforcing the CASA and the CBA, and this might be where there's a tension that needs to be resolved. And certainly it may be an issue that may be ripe for going to the monitor and say, hey, there's, you know, we have this tension, or possibly, you know, one of the things that Ms. Gooch and I will need to explore is whether this is, you know, I mean, there's a lot of issues here, whether this is something that needs to be litigated as far as an illegal provision. I mean, we certainly have a duty under the CASA to defend provisions under the CASA. And so we can't negotiate away provisions of the CASA. And so, you know, it's complicated and there's no easy answer to it. But I think that the best answer I can give you is this might be an issue that becomes ripe for looking for a stronger recourse than what we've taken. And the flip side of this is perhaps APOA was just trying to use it as a bargaining chip to see if they could get something out of it before they agreed to it, as Member Wartell indicated. And so, you know, I think Ms. Gooch and I should probably just explore all options at this point and make a determination of where to go from here.
Okay.
Well, we do have a motion and a second on the floor, but I have one more suggestion. If, you know, I don't mind the information being redacted, But if that is a reason for a delay and APOA is adamant that they don't want the board to see that information, well, maybe they would like to have one of their members or fund that position to have redactions done when necessary. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
Just one more issue.
Yes.
Do we need to also direct Council Gooch to continue negotiations? Or is that in the motion?
I believe it was.
Chair French,
Well,
and
I can-
it was in the motion, I thought.
It was in the motion. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Varela, will you call the roll?
French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
Yes.
Member Wortel.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. It is now 6:30. What's the consensus of the board? Would you like to take a 15-minute break or continue?
Since we're moving through, I wouldn't mind finishing so we can end personally,
Okay.
but I'll go either way. Yeah, we're
Remember
very,
what did you say?
I said we're very close, so I think we should press on and be done.
Okay.
That's just, but I'm okay if, you know.
Member Wortel and Member Rayner?
I just as soon continue.
Agreed.
Okay, then we will continue. Let's move on. We're going to move on to item F. This was a case 19-77270 that has received a lot of attention and a lot of conversation from the board. I did receive I think the board received a letter from a concerned citizen about this. As a board, we were very concerned because we sent a letter to the chief, and when we received the response back, it was not from the chief. So I felt like the chief was ignoring or disregarding our concerns, our issues with this case. During one of the meetings, the chief had said that he had set up a monthly meeting with the executive director, and that they had had our concerns. He heard them, he was listening. And he said that he would also would reach out to the board if we wanted to meet with him. So I set up with that meeting with the chief, and it was very productive. It was very enlightening. And I just want to tell that particular citizen that sent that and the other board members that when we met with the chief, it was an eye opener for me, because I did feel like they were just ignoring us and they weren't taking into consideration our concerns, our issues with that particular case. But once speaking to the chief, and I won't repeat our conversation verbatim, I will say that he agreed that there was no SOP violations, but he also said he listened to our concerns, he took them to heart, he looked into this to see there's always room for improvement, to see if there was ways it could have been done better, anyway, to avoid things that issues or this type that can be eliminated in the future. Not admitting guilt, not saying they were guilty, but he agrees with us. There's always room for improvement. Was there issues and concerns that he looked into that we brought to him? Absolutely, he did. So I just want to say that I thought the meeting was very productive. I was very happy that the chief met with us, and we talked for an hour and a half. He didn't rush us out of his office. He gave us as much time as we could. And I was going to bring this up under updates, but I will say during that meeting with the chief, I asked him if he would come to our meetings, because it would show the public and the board that he's listening, that he cares about our concerns, that, he isn't ignoring us, and that, he meets with other ones when he meet with us. The chief immediately agreed. He will be coming to our meetings semi-annually to give us updates for Q&A. And it was funny. He said, well, Patty, I never came because I was never invited. And I said, well, I'm extending you that invitation. We definitely want you to come. So I will just say that I thought the meeting was very productive. And I'm glad to know we were not aware of these meetings going on. We weren't informed about them, but he told us about them. And so I just wanted the board members and other citizens to know that I was wrong in my thoughts about him ignoring us and totally disregarding our concerns on that case. And with that, I'll let Member Wartell or Member Nixon speak on what they thought about the meeting or if they had any additional remarks.
No, I think he was very forthcoming and very willing to come to our meetings. I was surprised that he was meeting with the agency without anyone informing the board that was occurring. And I think that will not happen in the future. So I think the meetings were very productive.
And I thought that the meetings were very productive from a stance of transparency. And I think that the willingness of the chief to say, okay, yeah, I'd like to get involved in this process tells you kind of where he was going. I'm still not happy about case ending with 7270. I think that it was a tremendous failure of humanity at this point. And you know, kind of let that be known. But I would also like to see what has been learned. In other words, I would never want a man to be, or anybody for that matter, to be treated like that person was. And I think that sentiment was kind of across the board. We're on the same page as far as that's concerned, whether you're looking at policy or not. One of the things now is I think that we have another avenue of transparency to touch base and form a working relationship with the chief so that, you know, he can see we're not just out to get you. We're basically out to make the public a safer place for the community and for taxpayers, you know. And so I was with Patty for the longest time on that, you know, the chief was not willing to meet with us. He wasn't willing to do these things. And, you know, somebody else would have to do it so that we were low on the agenda for him. But that is 100% not the case. And that's good. So I plan on, you know, digging deeper in cases and doing these things and basically setting the tone and the expectation for this board, you know, long after I'm gone and my 3 years are up. I'd want Rashad, Mike, and Patty to be able to take advantage of some of these this headway that we've made in doing that, so that we can really do some good work on the board. But I think that is definitely possible now, given the attitude of the chief, and that you know, he's willing to, the other thing I took away from, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's willing to have the tough conversations. You know, and there's not a lot of chiefs that are willing to do that, and that goes a long way when it comes to doing this kind of work. So.
Just to add to that, he was immediately forthcoming on that particular case.
Indeed.
And forthcoming with his attitudes and where he thought the failings were. So I was impressed with, as you said, his transparency on that issue.
Well, I want to make it clear that I didn't say I was satisfied with how that case was handled. But I will say that I was wrong in thinking that the chief was ignoring our concerns.
Agreed.
That's the point I was trying to make, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate that, and I appreciate attending, and I do believe he said if we wanted to, he would meet with us monthly also. And so I will be setting that up so different board members that want to, as long as we don't have a quorum, we can meet with the chief on a monthly basis. So I will be talking to his assistant so that we can continue these conversations. I think they're important. So thank you, everyone. So let's move on to item G, a notice of hearing on IMR. Tina?
Thank you, Chair French and Board. This is an agenda item that you should see coming. Mark your calendars. I believe the hearing, it starts July 26th. It will be online via Zoom. Starts at 8:30. We have already let the court know that all of you may want to be in attendance. And so I'll ask the agency to, I guess, list a notice of potential quorum so that anyone that wants to go is welcome to attend. It's open to the public. But the other thing that we've been asked to provide to the Department of Justice to so advise the court is who will be speaking on the board's behalf at the public hearing that's happening on the 26th. And the Department of Justice through Ms. Martinez needs that information by Monday. I don't see any reason why y'all can't have that discussion tonight, but to the extent it matters or is helpful, traditionally it's been your chair that is there to present based on the letter that was presented to the court. If there's anything outside of the letter that you would like whoever it is that's going to be speaking to the court to address, I recommend you provide that authority this evening so that your speaker can represent what the board would like to be represented to the court. I always attend the hearings. I always send a nice summary of what happens for anyone that can't be there all day, because I know many of you are working and have full-time commitments otherwise. But what I need tonight is guidance so that I can advise the Department of Justice who your speaker is going to be. And you all may want to have a discussion about what items or topics you would like presented on your behalf at that hearing.
Any comments from the board on what they would like to be our speaker to speak on or present at that? Tina, correct me if I'm wrong. They hear from everybody and the board chair is one of the last ones to be heard, right? I think.
Oh, Chair French, yes, except I'm optimistic that because we turned our letter in early, that my understanding is that the agenda for the stakeholders is based on receipt of the letters, that we may be higher in the agenda than we were in past times. Traditionally, we've kind of run out of time for the stakeholders and the court has done a second day of hearing, but it's kind of first come, first serve as far as the agenda for the stakeholders. Whenever your letter gets provided to DOJ, that is where you are in the line. I think it makes sense, and I'm optimistic that we were before the deadline, we might be higher up in the list.
When we just passed the new policies and procedures, part of that says that the chair speaks for the board. And I would be very comfortable with the chair speaking for the board at that. Maybe there are reasons not to do that. But that would be my suggestion.
I agree.
So do we need a motion on that, Tina? Or just a consensus?
You could take a formal vote or a consensus. It doesn't matter. But the other thing you might want to know, Chair, is are you speaking to the items that were in the letter and that's it? Or is there anything else that the board would like you to convey? It would be helpful for me in case there's any kind of legal question I may need to field. Hopefully there isn't, but I like to know where the lines are, and if the items in your letter are what we were talking about, that's fine. But I'm not aware if there's any other things that have come up that you would want to raise. I doubt it, but this is your opportunity.
Well, I will say this, if any board member has something that they feel very strong about that is not brought up this evening and they think that they would like for me to speak on that, please give me a call and I will talk to Tina about that. I think I don't know if the judge reads all the letters or not. Would it be a waste of time to review what we've already stated in our letter? It appears to me it would be advantageous to bring up a few other points that the board would like to make, but I'm not sure. I've listened, but I think by the time they get to our chair, I think I've heard it one time.
Chair French, I guarantee you the judge has read every single document that crosses the docket in this case. He usually asks the parties about those documents. So you are right, the judge will be well learned about what your letter says, but it's an opportunity to highlight the topics of your letter in a different way if you're so inclined. For instance, the failure to have a full complement of the board of 9 members. You've put that in your letter. It's an item that I think you want to raise, and it's an opportunity to say, well, we have member Rayner now, and we have member Jackson, but we still don't have 9. And we appreciate efforts that are being done, but we want to apprise the court that we still don't have 9. So topics with updates would probably be the easiest. I'm more concerned that if there's a completely different item that the board wants raised with the court, that you get consensus from them now to speak on their behalf.
Well, I'm not sure if they would, we can speak on what was there, but I'm not sure that everybody, like our new member Rayner or Jackson, are familiar, would even know at this point if there's any other issues they'd like to bring up. I guess I can highlight what was in there. There's another issue that I do like the cost of the way it's currently written. I think it gives us, the board, the ability to see information necessary in order to make policy and procedure changes. I do agree with that, and I believe the board does too. There are certain things we cannot make policy and procedure recommendations if we don't have the information, enough or access to the information to review that. So that is one issue that I have. So I do like the cost of the way it's written now, and I'd like for it to stay that way. That is one issue that I would like to state to the judge. Does any of the other board members have any issues they'd like to bring up?
May I make a suggestion? Why don't you put together the bullet points that you want to bring up and send them out to us? And then maybe we can be more helpful in either adding to or fleshing them out, or maybe we think that those are plenty.
Member Wortel, I will resend the letter that was sent to the judge. Do you have a Member Crawford's letter? It responded.
Yes,
that,
of course.
okay, that's what I would be highlighting, but you just want me to bullet point it?
Well,
Make
if you're going to speak, you're not going to just read the letter to them.
Right.
So it would be good if you
I
told us
understand.
what you were going to say in the order that you were going to say it.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I didn't understand it first. Absolutely. I will send out that bullet point to the members.
Chair
But
French,
the
member
rest of
Wortel.
I was going to say the rest of our folks ought to chime in on that.
I just make sure that we do not have a rolling quorum. So member Chair French, that would mean that the board would only respond to you individually, and we would not communicate concerns among board members. And if there were a need for a special meeting, we would address it. But just to make clear, it would only be information being provided to the chair on behalf of the board members, not a rolling quorum.
Good point.
Thank you, Tina. And I will, when I send this out, I will BCC the board so they can't hit reply all. And that helps avoid a rolling quorum also. So we didn't have a motion or anything on the floor, right? We were just going to proceed with that, the chair speaking. Okay, that's fine. The next thing is a motion to go into executive session. So.
Update requests.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Update request. I have a couple of updates I'd like to make. I would like to remind the board that we're going to have a special meeting for serious use of force cases. I believe it's July 28th, and we will start at 5, I believe. I believe that's correct. Is that correct, Ms. Varela? You've usually send out the agenda is the reason I'm asking you.
That's correct. And you all should have an invite, but I will forward it to member Rayner.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. Also, I would like to say that Member Nixon and I met with Alexander Weiss, and we did send the agency a letter. I think it was on July 5th or 6th, something like that, that we had met with him, and we did approve the scope of services. We talked to him at length. And so we have asked them to continue with the procurement procedure, whatever that would be, and keep the board updated. They will update me. I will update the board on the staffing study. So I thought it was a very good meeting. Mr. Weiss was very willing to look into any studies that we wanted to and he had a lot of knowledge and a lot of background. He's done this quite a bit. He's been with APD, and so really had a lot of knowledge on doing staffing studies for investigators. He will be doing a staffing study for all agency staff. And so I was very impressed with his scope of service and his willingness to do this staffing study. I will say that it will be a while, probably September before we can start. That's just a guesstimate, but I believe that that will be the date, or as soon as we can get the procurement done. And I'm not sure of that. I did ask the agency for the procurement process and updates, but that's okay. I can get that myself. So we'll look into that and see what the time frame is for getting something done like that. I also want to welcome Member Rayner and Member Jackson. Member Jackson is observing this meeting. He will be a voting member at our next meeting, but I just want to say thank you to both of you for volunteering. It's very time consuming, but we really appreciate it. And I believe that Mr. Sylvan said, no, he just mentioned these two. So I was just going to say, I want to say thank you to both of you and welcome you to this board.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
With that, now I guess we're ready to move on to item 14. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I need a second. Thank you. Ms. Barella, will you call the roll?
Member French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
Yes.
Member Wartell.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
Sure.
Thank you. And I just want to state for the record that we went into executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 10-15-1H2. And with that, can I have a motion to come out of the executive session?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Farella, will you call the roll?
Member French,
Yes.
Member Nixon,
Yes.
Member Rayner,
Yes.
Member Wartell. Member Wartell. You read it, sir.
Someone muted me. Yes.
Thank you. That motion passed unanimously.
All right, and I'll also state for the record that the only items discussed were the items on the agenda. So we'll move on to item 15, agenda item 15. Is there any old business? I don't see any, and we'll move on to new business. I have one issue to bring up under new business. According to the new ordinance, we have to have somebody write a job description for the board and submit to city council. Previously, I had asked Member Galloway and Member Nixon to do that. And Member Galloway is no longer here. And so I need another individual or somebody to volunteer and work with our council. And Member Nixon, are you still willing to work on that task?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I can volunteer for that. I'd like to do that.
Okay, thank you, Member Rayner. So we will have Member Rayner and Member Nixon work with our council, and I'm authorizing you guys to meet and talk with council. I would recommend that you get together and put the job description together, and then once you think you have it together, then meet with the council. That's just a suggestion, not a. So, and then also, if you want to talk to any board member, as long as it's just 3 and not 4, and you don't create a rolling forum, you can also do that. You can reach out one at a time. So, okay. That's all I have to do business. I'm sorry, Member Nixon?
Yeah, I was going to ask Member Rayner if he had an email address set for the board yet.
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
I will shoot you an email and then you'll have it, I guess.
Sounds good. Thank you.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Excuse me, I thought that we were, are we voting on this? That was one of the things that we discussed in the new procedures.
The adjournment?
Yes,
Until we pass the new procedures, I'll say.
we just did.
Oh, that is true. Okay, so in our new procedures, I believe we said that as long as there is a motion, we don't have to take a roll call to adjourn.
If there, without object, the issue is without objection or vote. Right.
Is there any objection to adjourning?
Nope.
If not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I think it was a great, productive meeting. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Rashawn.